I never believed in love at first sight. Honestly, I thought it was something for cheap movies or badly written books. You know the type. Dramatic music, two strangers staring at each other, and suddenly the world stops turning. I always laughed at that. Well, life clearly decided it was time for me to stop laughing. It all started on a rainy Tuesday morning. The kind of morning when the sky looks tired and the streets smell like wet asphalt. I was already in a bad mood. My shoes were not waterproof. My bag was heavy, and I had 3 essays waiting for me at home, so yes, I was not exactly ready for romance. I went into the small café on the corner. It was my usual place not because it was special, but because it was close and the coffee was strong enough to wake the dead. The café was almost empty. Only 2 students were sitting by the window, pretending to read their books while secretly watching each other. I respected the effort. At least they were trying to look intellectual. I chose my usual seat, ordered a cappuccino, and opened my laptop. My plan was simple: drink coffee, survive the day, and maybe write 3 sentences for my essay before giving up. The sound of the coffee machine was strangely comforting, like a background song for a boring life. And then he walked in. Tall, slim, hair that looked like he had lost a battle with the wind but decided not to care. His jacket was wet from the rain, and his shoes made that embarrassing squeaky sound on the floor. But somehow, instead of looking ridiculous, he looked like a hero from a romantic drama. The kind of person who could say something simple like, "Pass the sugar," and suddenly half the cafe would fall in love. He went to the counter and ordered coffee. Black. No sugar. Of course, mysterious people always drink their coffee black. I wanted to roll my eyes, but instead I stared. My eyes betrayed me. They just didn't listen. When he turned, our eyes met. A cliché, I know. I could almost hear dramatic music in my head, like the universe had hired a secret orchestra for this moment. He didn't look away. He smiled, just a little, but enough to make my heart do something very stupid. It jumped. "Don't be ridiculous," I told myself silently. "It's just a guy, just coffee. This is not destiny, this is caffeine." My brain was logical. My heart, however, was already preparing a wedding speech. He picked up his cup and looked around for a table. There were at least 10 empty ones, but of course, he chose the one right next to mine. I tried to act calm, like it was completely normal, like I didn't notice. Spoiler, I noticed everything. I wanted to write something in my essay, to look busy and intelligent. Instead, I just stared at the blank screen while secretly watching him from the corner of my eye. He opened a notebook and started writing with great focus. Who even uses notebooks these days? I suddenly hated him a little for being old-fashioned in such a charming way. For a few minutes, nothing happened. Just 2 strangers drinking coffee in silence. But inside me, everything was too loud. My heart, my thoughts, my hopes, my fears. That rainy Tuesday morning, in a small cafe with bad chairs and good coffee, I knew something had changed. This was not just another day. This was the first page of a story. Maybe a beautiful story. Maybe a tragic one. Probably both. And the worst part? I couldn't wait to read it. First words. I told myself I wouldn't speak first. No way. He was the one who sat next to me, so he could start the conversation if he wanted to. I was busy, very busy. I had an essay to write, after all. Important academic work. Of course, my essay document was still empty, the cursor blinking like it was laughing at me. He wrote something in his notebook, then paused. I tried not to look, but curiosity is stronger than self-control. His handwriting was surprisingly elegant, almost old-fashioned, like someone who wrote love letters in another century. Honestly, it was unfair. People should not look mysterious, handsome, and intelligent all at once. It's dangerous for society. Is the Wi-Fi working? He suddenly asked. For a second, I forgot how to speak. His voice was calm, deep, with just a hint of tiredness, like he had already lived 3 lives before breakfast. I wanted to say something smart, something funny, something that would make me unforgettable. Instead, I said, yes, I think so. Brilliant, truly poetic. Shakespeare would be jealous. He smiled, not in a cruel way, but in a way that made my cheeks burn. Good, thanks. Silence again. He went back to his notebook. I went back to my essay that wasn't happening. My hands typed random words, then deleted them. My brain screamed, say something, anything. But what could I say? Nice weather? It was raining. I like your jacket? It was soaking wet. Not helpful. Finally, he spoke again. Do you come here often? I almost laughed. Such a classic line. But he didn't say it like a bad pickup attempt. He said it casually, like he really wanted to know. Yeah, I answered, trying to sound cool. It's my usual place. Coffee is strong, chairs are weak. He laughed softly, and for some reason, that sound felt like an achievement. That's exactly why I like it, he said. And just like that, the air between us changed. A little lighter, a little warmer. The rain outside kept falling, but inside the cafe something had begun. I told myself it was nothing, just small talk, just 2 strangers sharing caffeine. But deep inside, I already knew. Small talk can be the first step to big disasters, or big love, or both. And honestly, I wasn't sure which one I wanted more. More than small talk. After his question, after my very average answer, there was a short silence again. Not the uncomfortable kind, but the type of silence that feels full, like something is waiting to happen. My cappuccino was already half gone, but my heart was doing double work. It was ridiculous. He was just a man with wet shoes and black coffee, but somehow he was also something more. He closed his notebook for a moment and looked at me directly. Do you study here? He asked, nodding at my laptop. I nodded too quickly. Yes, well, I try. Mostly I stare at the screen and drink coffee. He smiled, that small, quiet smile that already felt dangerous to me. That's an honest answer. What are you studying? Literature, I said, and immediately felt embarrassed. Literature always sounds like a romantic choice, and I didn't want him to think I was the type who lived only in books. I mean, it's not as dreamy as it sounds. Mostly it's deadlines, and professors who hate joy. He laughed. Not too loud, but warm, like he understood exactly what I meant. Sounds familiar? I study architecture, which is also not as dreamy as it looks in movies. It's more about numbers and mistakes you can't afford to make. I tilted my head. So you're building the future, and I'm just writing essays about the past. Nice balance. He seemed to like that. His eyes lit up a little, and he leaned forward like he was curious about me. Or maybe that was just my imagination. My imagination is very good at lying. There was a pause, and I decided to be brave, or maybe stupid. With me, it's usually the same thing. So do you always sit next to strangers in cafes? Or is this my lucky day? For a second, he looked surprised. Then he grinned, and it was unfair how much that grin affected me. Honestly, I usually sit alone, but today I thought, why not? Why not? I repeated, trying to sound casual, but my voice betrayed me. It was softer than I wanted, almost too gentle. The rain outside became heavier, drops racing down the window. The cafe smelled of coffee, wet coats, and something sweet from the counter. The students by the window had already left, so it felt like the place belonged just to the 2 of us. And I had to admit, it felt nice. We kept talking, slowly at first, like testing the water, about books we hated, about buildings he admired, about why rainy days make people dramatic. He told me he once designed a bus stop for a school project, and it collapsed on paper before it could collapse in real life. I told him I once tried to write a love poem and accidentally made it sound like a horror story. We laughed at our failures, and it felt easy, almost too easy. But at the same time, under the laughter, something serious was building. I could feel it in the way his eyes stayed on mine for a second too long, or how my words sometimes came out softer than planned. At one point, I noticed his notebook again. "What do you write there?" I asked. He hesitated, just for a heartbeat, but I saw it. Then he closed the cover with his hand and smiled. "Nothing important, just thoughts," which of course meant something important, something I wasn't supposed to know yet. And strangely, I didn't mind. It made the mystery feel alive, like there were hidden pages I would one day read. Time moved differently in that cafe. Maybe it was the rain, maybe the coffee, maybe him. But when I finally checked the clock, an hour had passed. I almost panicked. I had done zero work, written 0 words for my essay, and yet I didn't regret it. Not even a little. He noticed me looking at the time. "Do you have to go?" he asked, his voice quieter now. I shook my head. "Not really, just guilty about my essay. But essays are boring. This is less boring." He laughed again, and I realized I wanted to keep making him laugh, to collect those sounds like treasures. That day, in the middle of rain and coffee steam, I understood something. I wasn't falling in love with Daniel, not yet. At least that's what I told myself. But I was falling into something, and honestly, I didn't even try to stop.